Let's get to see what is happening in Nigeria, city of Commerce, where the recent High Court ruling on KANO EMIRATE TUSSLE has stirred significant controversy and debate within Kano State. Now, this decision, which impacts the traditional emirate system, has far-reaching implications for governance, social cohesion, and political stability in the region. Now, today we'll dive into the complexities of this ruling and discuss the way forward for Kano's polity. Now, joining us virtually from Kano is Ambassador Ibrahim Waya. He's the Executive Director of Citizens for Development and Education and the Chairman of the Conference of Northern States Civil Society Networks. Please join us now from Kano. Good morning and good to have you, Ambassador Ibrahim.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, walk us through what is the current situation in the States as far as the polity is concerned. Just give us an overview of what is happening in Kano right now.
Thank you very much for having me. Well, in brief, the general situation in Kano is that there's still tension, although very calm one, and everybody is still very tense and very much uncomfortable with the situation because there are a lot of uncertainties in the situations as nobody really knows what would be the next thing to happen in Kano. This is actually the general overview of the thing.
Okay, now looking at the court ruling, what says you? Is it really in place? Considering the fact that the current emir now, who just returned back to his throne, talking about Sanusi Lamido, the former central bank governor, who actually got back to the throne. Looking at the whole tussle in the court currently, now the court seems to be presiding or giving their rulings in favor of Ado Bayero, that's talking about the federal court. And the state government is actually taking its stand and insisting that Sanusi remains the authentic emir. Don't you think this is going to send wrong signal as far as the Northern Emirate is concerned?
Well, actually, although this is not the first time we're having conflicting judgment in the country, because it's so unfortunate that we have a situation like this at hand in this country, that there are all the time conflicting judgment and conflicting rulings coming from the same system of judiciary in Nigeria. Uh, it's very precise. There are a lot of misgivings as far as the judgment is concerned or the ruling is concerned. The misgivings is that some from some constituency or some quarters, they still feel that the rulings of the court is still in favor of the deposed Emir of Kano, Alhaji Aminu Ado Bayero, while some who have really given also a concise interpretation of the ruling uh, maintain the position that the ruling is in favor of Sunusi Lamine Sunusi, the 16 emir and 14 emir. But whatever it is, one thing that people should really understand that the whole of power and authority uh, to appoint and depose an emir remains in the hands of the governor. But looking at the recent ruling by the Federal High Court under Justice Salima, what the implication of the judge, the ruling was that uh, whatever happened after after the assenting of the law, that is the refill law, emirate refill law of 2024, was voided by the court because it was looked at as a flagrant disobedience of the order of the court. But one thing people should really understand that on the 23rd of May, the governor, through the instrumentality of the Kano State House of Assembly, already passed this law, and the governor already assented to the law. So, as far as the whole legislative process is concerned, was completed. And it was then immediately after assenting the law, it's not more than 5 minutes, then the governor announced his statement of Sunusi Lamide Sunusi as the 16th emir of Kano. So what actually was voided by implication as far as the ruling of the Honorable Justice Lehman is concerned was the ceremony and celebrations and also presentation of the stool. by the governor to the emir of Kano, the 16th. That is actually the simple implications as far as the rule of this ruling is concerned. That is actually the general opinion of many of the legal experts that have really given, and that is actually what it stands to be. But considering what actually that is still happening as far as the other quarters is concerned, that is those that still feel that the first emir is still the one to be considered as the lawful emir of Kano. The implication of that is you are now considering the refill law is not still in existence, which is actually is complete misgivings, and considering the fact that the law has already come to stay. Originally, we used to have five emirates. That is after the balkanization of the Emirate Council by the then governor of Kano State, Abdullah Umar Ganduje, in 2019. By implication, under the law, it changed the whole narrative about the structure of the Emirate Council. That is from having only one emir to having five emirates in the state. But coming on board with the new refill law, which is 2024, it has completely changed the whole thing to the old narrative. That is completely now dislodging and ablution the additionally created four emirates in the state. So if you look at it by that implication, then definitely that ruling or the position will affect all the five emirs in the state. Even though the emir of Kano Alhaji Aminu Ado Bayero was not actually pronounced or was not actually acting as or serving as the emir of Kano, but rather as the emir of maybe about 8 metropolitan local government, because the 44 local government we have in Kano were divided into 5 according to the Emirate Council that were actually created by the then Gendouti government. So, in essence, if you look at it actually, then even if the federal government go in by the position of the federal government, I mean, federal high court ruling that whatever all the action that actually happened after the assent of the law remain voided, fine. The governor still has the right to still choose another emir and to still also appoint the emir of his own choice. I mean, of his own choice and wish. So that is actually the whole thing. So it's not in any way sometimes, I mean, it's not actually in any way something difficult, but rather a lot of people considering the conflicting interests, especially the vested political interest that is actually revolving around the whole issue. That is why there are a lot of confusion, and that is why there are a lot of conflicting things coming or conflicting interpretations about the ruling of the court. And again, the ruling after this ruling, the court also maintained and requested all the parties also to maintain status quo. And also, now the court said would no longer continue to entertain the case until after the hearing of the appeal at the Court of Appeal. So the whole thing now is in the Court of Appeal because the Kano State government is challenging the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court.
Okay, Ambassador Ibrahim, and tell us how has this ruling how is it affecting the political landscape in Kano? So help us out now, Ambassador Ibrahim.
Well, actually, a situation like that cannot really go without a lot of implications. And the most unfortunate thing is the polarization of the polity itself. Uh, the situations has really forced the political class itself and the political atmosphere in the states to be polarized along different kind of interests. And everybody is trying to align himself with one particular group or other. That has really created a political conflict, and which may actually, if political disagreement between the different political elite in the state, and that if care is not taken, may really actually transform into political conflict because the tension is growing and there's so much vested interest is also at the same time garnering a lot of support from different constituency within and outside the state. The most unfortunate thing is the fact that many interests outside the kernel have also delved into the whole thing, which really is so much unfortunate and unbecoming. We are very much surprised that many interests, especially political interests, have gotten involved into the whole thing. And this has really led to militarization of the civic community in Kano, where we witnessed a lot of the presence of so many armed men around the city everywhere. And actually that has really created a lot of tension for people. And it's so unfortunate in a political or in a civic environment like that, where there are practices of democracy, where democracy is in practice, and you see this kind of thing is really unfortunate to the extent that even the military got involved in the whole thing. Yes, in a civil dispute or conflict of this kind of nature, civilian authority should be the one to handle that, especially when you talk about the security agencies like the police, like the civil defense. So that has really created this kind of tension. Again, the destruction. The governance system is completely been destructed because, despite the fact that the governor is trying to do everything possible to deliver the dividends of democracy as promised, but yet this tension is creating a lot of distractions in one way or the other because there are certain things that the government is willing to undertake for the benefit of the people, but they could not do that due to the extent that the governor is complaining publicly that his orders are not being obeyed by the security agency in the state. That is very much unfortunate because what we expect to have a harmonious working relationship between the government and the security agencies because whatever the security agencies are doing, they're doing it for the best interest or in the best interest of the citizens. And the governor and the chief security officer of the state has the best of
Now,
well
just recently, some members of the APC at the national level and from the state level, they are calling for the arrest, the immediate arrest of the former governor of the state, talking about Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, as according to them, he's actually fermenting trouble in that region. And they are saying if he's not arrested, things may go out of hand. What says you? Is it out of place to call for Kwankwaso's arrest, or will this, in a way, further complicate the current political tussle we are experiencing there?
These are actually some of the repercussions and some of the implications of the situation itself. And that is why I said there is so much tendency of high rising of political disagreement and also exchange of words between the different political accounts in the state. And what the former governor, Dr. Rabi Musa Konkoso, said was actually within his own conviction of the fact that he has seen the situations, how the federal government has actually uh, so much obviously indicated its own interest and has also taken side in the whole thing, which is very much unfortunate. So, considering him as a political figure in the state and considering him that also maybe as the leader of the NFP, that could really be one of the things that has really engineered or maybe motivated him to cry out because he cried out simply because he thought that the situation, if it is allowed to continue this way, may actually culminate into another things. And we're having now the rising incidences of political chokery, which is actually one of the product of these things. And we, for long, there were no political chokery in the state. I work with the KANO Peace Committee, which is served at the head of secretariat. We know what we've been doing in the state to ensure that there's peace and harmony in the state, social cohesion. But unfortunately now there is a resurgence of the political chokery in the state, and it's taking a different dimension. And a lot of lives have been lost in the process. And the security agencies seem to be doing anything, seems to be very much indifferent about that because they're not doing so much. The kind of attention they have really given to or they have attached to the issue of this emirate tussle is more than that of the protection of the lives and properties of the state of the state citizens. So that is actually one of the implications that we are actually seeing. So as far as I'm concerned, whatever Congress will say is political statement. And he did that just only with a view to draw the attention of the federal government to understand the implication of its actions or inactions, and at the same time also to understand or appreciate also probably the conspiracy that has been hatched by some of the people within the political cycle in the state who claim to be working or probably having the support of the federal government.
Okay, finally now, how can stakeholders work together to ensure that we have a lasting solution to the issue, and what are your recommendations as a stakeholder in the state?
What the problem is, the issue is not in any way, it could not really be facet political. It's just the issue of rule of law. If the rule of law could really be allowed to prevail, then there's not any problem. In the fact, in essence, what I'm trying to say that look at the federal high court entertaining cases to do with the traditional institutions, which is completely uh, very wrong according to many of the legal argument that we've gotten, some of the cases that we've gotten, that it is really within the prerogative of the state high court to entertain such kind of things.
Mm.
So if that is actually the truth, then so why should federal government then get involved in that through the instrumentality of the federal high court? So you can see now the federal government is using the federal high court, while the state government is using the state high court. And at the same time, also the federal government is taking advantage also that it has the control over the security agencies, and they're using that. You can, if you go to Kano, you will see the kind of armed men that we have gotten around the palace in Nasarawa State. You wouldn't believe, you would just only probably thinking whether it is we're having a president as a guest or as a visitor in the state. So that is very much unfortunate. And there are other places that really require the security, but that security is not being provided for. So the whole thing lies about rule of law. If we can all stick to the rule of law, go by the dictate of the law, go by the dictate of our constitution, that wouldn't be any problem, because it is nothing to do with politics. It is clearly stated out there is a law guiding everything as far as the appointment, depositions, discipline, and everything with the traditional institutions then is concerned. Is there in every state house of assembly law. Every state has its own state house of assembly law, and they have spelled out that how they should go about. The same way 2019 Ganduje did what he did. He balkanized the state into 5 emirates, and he vacated by the state assembly law, and nobody said anything, despite the fact that even at that time there were some orders of the court that restrained him from doing that. But he went ahead and do that simply because he was APC governor, and also he was having a federal government support on his side. So that is the problem. Now another governor came in and decided to repeal the same law, and he has gotten the same kind of power the former governor has gotten. So what is the big deal about that? The only thing is just only wait for your time. When your time comes, maybe 2017, if you will be the one to win, or if you get to win, if you get the victory, at least maybe getting the seat of the governor in the state, then fine, you can also do what you want. Because using the instrumentality of the law, especially the state of support, that is the best way to go about it. And this is a law that was actually uh, that was actually done by the State House of Assembly, and it passed through every kind of legislative process, and it was considered as a law because it was assented by the governor. So, what is the big deal about that? And they have gotten the constitutional responsibility and the duty to do that, and no power, no anybody can take away that power from the State Assembly of legislating on anything to do with the traditional institutions. So we are just only, I think, deceiving ourselves, and this is not really going to help us. You cannot just only be sitting in Abuja and expect that you're going to be imposing certain things with certain interests of the people. It's not like that. The politics in Kano is completely different. So I really want to caution the president that he should really appreciate what is actually happening, and he should really appreciate the magnitude, the implication this has on his own political career. Because the problem is that a lot of people in Kano have started now perceiving the whole thing as a calculated fraud by the presidency to probably make some harm against Kano, or probably try to facilitate certain thing which is actually not in the interest of the state and in the interest. And he should really remember that Kano is the most populous state in the country, and we have political value. We have political value, like I said. So we can add a lot of value politically in the electoral system. And he required Kano in 2027. And for that reason, he should try to mend his own relationship with the people of Kano. He shouldn't just only be listening to others, because there are a lot of every state has its own peculiarity. Look at what is happening now in River State. Just recently, about 3 days ago, the governor removed the chairman of the traditional council in the state, and nobody said anything, simply because he has the power to do that. And look at what is happening in Sokoto. Just recently, about 3 days ago, they started to make some amendment in the law establishing a traditional institution in the state. So why should in any way kind of be different? Every state is doing its own way, in the best interest of the things they can do. And when you're elected as a governor, you should be allowed to exercise your full power. You have your full power, you have your constitutional responsibility, you have your constitutional duties, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. So I think should not be actually the concern or in anything that the federal government to be intervening into this kind of thing. These are purely state affairs. resolving these things by calling attention of its own members, try to get them to order and probably try to let them to understand that there are demarcations. You cannot just because you're in Abuja and you think that you have the federal government, you have the federal might, then you'll be using that against the people and against the interests of the people. That is really unfair. And this has actually a spillover, may really have a spillover implication politically of the federal government. I'm sure that because it's not only Kano, these things concern the whole Nigerian northern state. It's not only that. Whatever happens to Kano, it happens to all other northern part of the country. And that is exactly what everybody is seeing it. All the people in the north are now looking at Tinubu as somebody who is against the north, as somebody who is actually plotting against Kano, as somebody who is actually trying to destabilize for the whole north. So that is actually a very big allegation, and he has to prove that wrong. He has a duty to prove that wrong. Otherwise, people will go on with that, and he will continuously be losing his own political popularity.
All right, Ambassador Ibrahim, where we appreciate you for taking your time to share this beautiful insight on the program. We'd like to have you again on the show so that we can extend a more frontline as far as northern Nigeria is concerned, and not just the northern Nigeria, the country as a whole. We'll be bringing you on board again to discuss with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
All right, that was Ambassador Ibrahim Waya, Executive Director of Citizens for Development and Education, and the chairman of the Conference of Northern States Civil Society Networks.